G'day friends and fans, welcome to Dave Talks Stuff, Ukraine War Update for the 14th of January 2025. It's marked as a re-upload because the live stream that I did a few hours ago got corrupted. I don't know what is wrong. The audio died after a few minutes, and so I have to redo the video. Well, I think it's important what happened today, so yes, I'm doing it again. Now, I will briefly explain what's happened. Russia has, of course, hit Kiev again with a couple of missiles and drones. Now, Ukraine's air defenses have not been good lately. Now, they've hit Kharkiv, Dnipro, and Kharkiv, and artillery at Kherson. Now, Russia has advanced. As we go around the map, they have opened up a new front up on the border. They've still engaging Ukrainians here, although they have advanced a little bit, not much, but they have advanced here south of Kupiansk. No activity here today. Now, since I record, in the last 3 hours since I've done this, there has been an advance. So this will show us tomorrow as well. The Russians have advanced a little bit here. But this was in the last few hours. This wasn't in my first video earlier today. It happens. The Russians have began here, which is new. Now, here the Russians advanced yesterday. And so in the last 2 days, they've taken this here. But in the last few hours, they've began fighting here again. When they've been fighting off and on throughout the front, they've advanced here, slowly filling in gaps. They haven't advanced here, although in my earlier video there was no fighting in Myriad. That started in the last few hours, so again it'll show probably in tomorrow's video as well. But most of the front there has been fighting. And yeah, this was taken yesterday. There was some advance here, not much. Sometimes when I do this, I do miss now and again a few little icons. They're insignificant. They're just every day, right? But what I'd like to point out is this is a very long front line. It measures over 700 miles. It's not straight. I know there's a lot. There's only over 100 points of activity, right? So there's lots of gaps in the front line. There's not much going on. Most of the war, most of the casualties are drone strikes. The two entrenched sides are throwing drones at each other on a constant basis. Ukrainians put out drones showing Russian troops, and yeah. Russian troops, once air defenses are depleted on both sides for that day, are very vulnerable. But it's often, you'll actually see a video of a Russian troop surrendering, not Russian troops, plural, right? Every day that happens. They get caught on patrol and they cannot outrun the drone, or one will surrender and buy time for the rest to get back to their lines. Now, just because air defenses deplete in one area does not mean Russia's vulnerable. Yet Ukraine seems to bark every day how we've captured a Russian soldier, or we captured this tank. Russia knows, right? When even as they put T-14s on the battlefield, right? There's going to be a huge mercenary army. There's 670,000 troops in the Ukrainian army, right? They have two mercenary armies of 100,000 each, right? Now, on the Russian side, it's almost purely Russian, except for around 50,000 North Koreans. But that's insignificant compared to the fact that Ukraine, they still don't have much of an advantage because Russians outnumber Ukraine on artillery and air defense and tanks and everything else, right? But Russia does not press its advantage. It does not use its entire army. So Ukraine is the proverbial mouse that's been smacked around the head and the cat's playing with it. The cat knows that the other predators out there are waiting for Russia to be vulnerable. This is a proxy war. And the whole idea was enemy of my enemy, right? They get Ukraine to shell the Donbass, right? Provoke the Russian invasion after years of Russia not invading, right? They have provoked the Russians since 2014, right? And Russia thought, oh, we'll take Crimea, we'll secure our position there, and they'll leave us alone. No. So Russia had to go through a long, arduous process within the UN, which is mostly ignored, to try and stop the ethnic cleansing in the Donbass region. Now, apparently, today, after my video, there was an appeal by the people of Donbass to end this. Apparently, Macron stuck his beak in. We'll get to that shortly. But ultimately, no. Nothing got done. Okay, Macron did nothing. But we'll get to that story anyway. But today was mostly propaganda. Again, I mean, the problem is the majority out there don't realise it, that this is nothing, right? SBU claim they targeted this and hit some explosion. Russia, right? They know if they send 100 drones, Russia shoots them down, right? But they can't shoot them all down. And that's what they do. Just like when Russia sends 300 and something drones into Ukraine, they know most of them aren't going to make it. That's the point, right? But Ukraine often, right, does not have drones survive the incursion into Russia, whereas every day Russia is able to have their drones survive. There is such an imbalance of power. And one of the reasons is the idiocracy and the over technical equipment of the West. Right? On paper, people might look at the Tempest. Now, the Tempest is new. It was unveiled in 2025. It's undergone field tests before. It's from America, yet Ukraine has made out, not most of the article, that this is some Ukrainian Air Force mobile anti-aircraft missile system. Well, in fact, it's not. It's armed with anti-tank drones. But it's sort of an anti-drone system. It's a combat vehicle with limited use. Now, unlike the Russian combat vehicles, this has no gun. It relies on a secondary gunner to bring a gun with them. There is no armor. This is not even a metal vehicle. This is a composite material. So it's also cheap as chips. For the reason is, you can look at it, right? The missile system, right, on board is worth way more, right, than the vehicle. And it's got radar you'll find on your average commercial fishing vehicle, except the fact that it's military grade, so it'll have a much longer range than your commercial fishing vehicle. But it really doesn't have anything sophisticated going for it. And, of course, what they're not telling you, it's presented in the Oz USA Defense Exhibit. It's an American system, right? It's Can-Am Maverick X3, and it has a GM114 Hellfires. Adult second generation air missile for the Apache, and the AGM-114L was for the Apache longbow. So we'll have a quick look. There's the vehicle in its civilian colours. It is a composite plastic material, but it does have some metal components that under the after all. But it's made to be lightweight, durable. It's a sports utility vehicle. Key characteristics is it's a turbocharged triple cylinder. It's not a big engine. It's more about it's 4x4, and it's more about off-road durability than high speed. Now there is a 2-seat, which is the standard version. It has a high. This has actually been seen in 4-seat in a recent Special Forces video, but copyright reasons could not show it to you. A lot of videos I'd love to bring you, but I can't show you because they're copyright. But it is made for sand, dunes, desert, trailblazing, and mud. So, it's a... now, the key thing here is it's only $6,000, but it's sold by Alibaba on their AliExpress website. It's actually a commercial vehicle. It is not a military... It was not a originally military designed vehicle. It's bought by an American company of Can-Am and refitted with a new shell and some weapons on its cage, right? But yeah. It's got sold through AliExpress and other websites. It's including a direct to public from Can-Am. There's the basic Maverick, an older version from I don't know if that's new, but I sure, yes, only $800. So it's well within Ukraine's budget, but of course you add some expensive missiles, Okay, so the AGM Hellfire, it's been around for a long time, but recently upgraded, the new version. Now, the original Hellfire was laser guided, and it's undergone many iterations, but it was a airborne fire and forget missile for the Apache. Now, the Apache longbow had the long version, right? This is once it's launched, it uses radar homing, so it remembers its target, and it's a multi-mission warhead that can be upgraded for tanks or heavy structures or ships. But the primary feature is that with the L is adverse weather conditions. So it doesn't matter. I think up to Category 4. After that, even in Category 4, the missile can be pulled off target or destroyed even by the adverse weather. But, by adverse weather conditions in Ukraine, they're talking about low visibility and radar jamming due to the natural environment of during snowfall. During light snowfall, it will remember its target and continue to hunt for it after it's fired. Now, the primary version that the Americans use, which is not exported right now, is a kinetic. This is a high-impact warhead, right? This is was found in Shangri-La vehicles and some light rocket artillery on the Humvee and Striker systems. Now, the Ninja is a low radar profile missile. It's fire and forget. It's made to be tube launched from so it can just be packaged and put onto a number of vehicles, including ships. And it has a much longer range, much faster. It is actually just basically a tungsten artillery shell with a nose cone, secondary guidance, and a fire and forget system. So basically this is a sophisticated artillery shell which was meant for the Navy on the Zimmett class, and for the new updated Striker air defense system and anti-tank system, and of course the Humvee anti-tank system, and so forth. But right now it's a low deployment, right? Mostly primarily helicopters in the American arsenal, whereas the L is your Europe and European export. Still, no, yes, but as for the K's and R's, yeah, they're just draining the Trump's just draining the old missiles from the arsenal, giving them a platform. But however, here is why it is not useful against drones, right? 21 drones. So you send 100 of these vehicles and it only shoots down 21 drones. That's a huge failure rate. Russia sends more than 21 drones a day, right? You've got 100 vehicles you want with 2 missiles. They go out, it could be a swarm. So bang, 2 missiles. Now what? Reload, right? So now you're reloading. You now, not only now is your air defenses are now targets. This, people forget this. Where did the majority of drones, what do? They're there to drain air defenses, right? And a lot of them are first person, right? They actually have an operator who can see. And if they see these drones, they go out looking for targets of opportunity, right? Not all of them are programmed to hit specific targets, right? They need to weaken air defenses and go ahead of the programmed missiles and programmed drones, right? So they launch all these first-person drones first to see where all the air defenses are, see what's active, and hit targets of opportunity. About a dozen vehicles a day are killed. So, yeah. But once these vehicles pop off their load, they're vulnerable. They have no guns, no follow-up, right? They can't even carry a secondary gun system. Whereas the Russians, they have the slightly larger and faster. Now they have 2. They have the converted BTRs and BTMs, and then the converted T90s, the Terminator, right? So they have on the Terminator, they have 8 Comets, which are a weaker version of the they're an anti-tank, but they're a weaker version of the Hellfire, right? Pound for pound, the Hellfire is much stronger than the Russian arsenal, and even the Comet 2. But, right, they're carrying 8, right? Big advantage. They're also carrying a either a 20mm autocannon like on the BTM, or a twin Zu-23, or in the smaller vehicles, a 12.7mm optical guided autocannon. Now, with these, they are drum-fed, huge belt feeds. Russia has huge stockpiles of these drums all over the place. So when the vehicle T-90 sets out, it can fire its load and stop reload. But it's got secondary guns and jamming, right? It also does carry jamming equipment. Now, this might be able to be fitted with a jamming, localized jamming to protect the vehicle, right? And as far as I know, the American jamming system has a high success rate. But this vehicle, no guns, right? And the Russian autocannon. Nobody needs to man it, right? It has the same radar, right? Because this is a small radar. You know, the Russians have got this technology of these vehicles have been predecessors, which did not. This is a 4-door, not the 2-door model, but these predecessors, right, from Iraq all the way back to Iraq, but the Iraqi vehicle had 50 cal to start with, and then it did have tows. So yeah, this is an update from the tow, but not by much. But ultimately, the Russian system, right, bigger, carries more ammunition and carries guns. And the Russians have more of them. So the mobile air defense system, plus the Russians have the mobile S-300, which is a big tracked vehicle with 4. Some have, then you've got the SA-28, and then you get the S-4, 400, 500, and 550. So, and you compare that to Ukraine. They've only got Iris-T and Patriots for anything big. And as we know, the Iris-Ts are running out of missiles on a constant basis. However, Germany is picking up production. Now, here's the strange thing, right? First off, Russia has taken another town in the time since my last video. But previously, Macron had talked to Russia, but after the conversation today, the story is updated. Since I last did the recording a short time ago, the Russian statement responded to the French, saying that Macron is not serious about his intention to contact Vladimir Putin. You know, they contacted him. They said, okay, we'll have a talk. Where and when? Macron declares we'll talk. Have a talk with Putin anyway, but we'll propose something in a few weeks. So, this was just Macron trying to make headlines for whatever personal reason. But I think it was the draw away from this earlier story, which I dismissed because, France has always been upset over German rearmament. But apparently Germany is now outproducing France in artillery shells and tanks. And German rearmament, well, apparently the Germans have started to actually be able to recruit at least some Germans. They've been able to get some military build-up in Poland. And Germany's scraped together a package. 120 and German spending's expected to reach 127 billion. That's on par with the Russians. So Germany now has a defense budget on par with the Russian war budget, and this has pissed off Macron because he knows where that money's coming from. All the money that usually Germany's spending in France on their expensive, bloated Eurofighter projects. No. France is often France and their is upset because it's a fragile alliance, and everybody knows it, right? France has bullied Germany for years about World War II, and more young Germans are saying, "No, fuck the French, fuck NATO, fuck Putin, and sometimes fuck Trump." But it is very divided. Most Germans don't want a war with Russia. And they also feeling that NATO has to come to an end. But how and in what form? Because most Germans also don't want to close the bases. But the problem with NATO and defense spending is, right, Germany's carried so many countries for so long, including France. So they've cut their what they call their foreign NATO spending and spending it on themselves. They haven't cut their NATO commitments. But France is, going, because they know exactly what it means. They're not buying overpriced French equipment. They're building their own battle rifles, their own uniforms, their own everything now. They are finally realizing that, why, in a war would you want huge long supply lines when all the wars that you've lost are being caused by the fact that you've had huge long supply lines. Germany's not looking for a war with Russia in Ukraine. They are sending a message, right? They know, and I think a lot of people know, that it's not Russia we have to worry about, but China. Germany, of course, has to prepare because one of the proposed scenarios is that if not when Russia ends the war, is that's when China will act in its final act of desperation. And one of the scenarios is China will invade Russia to force basically force Russia into a position where it has to go to war with Europe, because otherwise it's a pretense, right? We all know that if Chinese troops enter Russia, they're never leaving, except when Europe is carrying them out, returning them home in body bags. We know how this plays out. Okay? The Russians won't accept occupation. They will probably surrender to America. We know the German army is not going to be pushed over, but they're not going, hopefully, right? But that Merck is thinking clearly and realizing that you don't want to go past Poland. You have to wait for the situation to play out. And that gives you more time to prepare, to train the German-Polish army, to solidify their position and basically start cutting off their excess fat, aka welfare to the French arms industry, and to some extent everybody's cut off the Italians because of their lack of productivity. Now, why European productivity is so low is, yes, women in the workplace, you don't want to know it, you don't want to hear it, but yes, women in the workplace lowered productivity by 31%. Europe has one of the worst productivity records in the world, and it also has one of the lowest male participation rates in the world. Most men are doing crappy jobs, all the high-tech industries, they're full of welfare, they import so much stuff, and it goes through a whole process of repackaging. It's very wasteful, right? I think recently, even in one of Putin's speeches, he pointed out that Germany was paying 20% more for arms than everybody else. And I think Germany noted that, and that's why they're going their own way. But German rearmament, they're not having a hissy fit thinking that Germany's going to invade them. No, they're having a hissy fit because Germany's cut them off from money. Because that NATO spending is going to Germany and spent in Germany, not spent in France. Now, a lot of people say, oh yes, the Germany's preparing for a war with America. No, they're not. No, they're not. They're distancing themselves from Greenland. If Denmark falls to America, Germany will just say, we told you so. And if France decides to send, France and England decide to send troops to Greenland, Germany's just waving them, hope and trying to talk the rest of the region into. So hopefully Germany has made it clear, and that this is just one of many times Germany's backflipped, where that Germany's decided, I am with Trump, not with France, and not with Macron, or not with England or Keir Starmer. Now, it is sometimes a difference. Sometimes their alliances, particularly between France and England, depend on the leadership. Right now, because they're two corrupt peas in a pod, France and England are very close. But out of the last 1,000 years, France and England have been bitter enemies 450 years out of that time. So there's always that eye on each other moment. Whereas Germany, yeah, they're looking to distance themselves from the past. And I think, making peace with Poland by showing that they're willing to prepare and defend Poland is a diplomatic move, not a military move. Whereas anti-corruption probe is launched. This is new. Zelensky's in trouble yet again. His inner circle is under investigation again. His servant of the People's faction in the Rada have yet again come under suspicion of corruption, where bribes over contracts. And again, right, this is the corruption committee that Europe forced onto Zelensky. He tried to get rid of it, and, well, it's backfired on him again. So, just to recap, there's been 2 sets of strikes today. One was about 18 hours ago, one was a short time ago. Now, tomorrow, there'll be still some of these holding over, but we'll see. But as I've said, and I'll repeat, when you see multiple missile strikes, usually there's been at most 3. We've almost had one every day, and this week, and it will go on. Now, Ukraine's strategy, it is failing, right? Ukraine is again today complaining that there's insufficient Western aid. Many military commentators agree with that, but according to Ukraine's own Ministry of Defense, they believe that it's war fatigue. They're not Western nations are now withholding aid, aka Germany, not just America now, because they got to prepare their own. It's not by choice, okay? China has made it clear today that reunification is going ahead. There is no way that is not going to spread to a wider war. And Russia, whether they like it or not, may be invaded by China under the pretense of bolstering an ally. China, this is another reason why I think, now, some commentators have said there's no dialogue. No, I think Europe's stalling for time. There is still dialogue, but I think it's stalling for time. They don't know what to do, because they put themselves in such an awkward political decision by constantly saying fuck Trump. And there's so much TDS in Europe, they don't trust the Americans, and because politically they can't come out and confirm everything Trump is saying is true. They want to embarrass Trump. They want to undermine Trump. They want Trump to fail, but at the same time they want to turn around and stop the Ukraine war before the Chinese send troops into Russia, because we all know once they're in there, they're not coming out except in body bags. And whether or not Russia likes it or not, they are not able to take on China unless they're willing to use a first strike on the Chinese. And they know China has missiles pointed at them, but then again, China has missiles pointed at North Korea, and North Korea has missiles pointed at China. Those have all been revealed. We all know that Xi has taken command of China's nuclear first strike arsenal, which they claim doesn't exist, but has been seen in parade photographs. These, of course, are your short-range submarine-launched missiles. Now, Ukraine has admitted to a manpower and mobilization issue. They have economic straits. They are short on their budget. They need to increase their spending to match Russia's spending. Now, Russia has adapted, and Russian economy, you won't believe this, the Russian economy is soaring. They just made in one day, 11.1 billion. How many corporations out there can make that much money in a day? with this there's so much demand right now for gold and other rare materials, right, and oil, that Russia makes more in one day than many corporations make in a year, in cash, in hard currency, in actual paid for in gold, right? Not just from the West, but from India and other countries around the world, right? They cannot do without Russian resources. That's why Europe wants to secure the Russian resources and America wants to secure Russia so the Chinese don't move in and monopolize that vast wealth for themselves to prop up their failed state. America is trying to prevent a Russian collapse, because if they continue this war and Europe escalates, or Xi Jinping starts to get antsy and thinks that he's not going to make it to 2027, he'll roll his troops. Not into Taiwan, no. He'll roll into Russia. He has to pretend that he's not going after Ukraine, after everything. But yeah, Xi Jinping wants Ukraine. He wants the materials. He wants the flow of materials. And if the flow of materials are threatened, he will go into Russia to secure the strategic minerals, because China doesn't have as much rare earth materials as you think they do. They get it, but because of their incursions into Russia under the pretense of the alliance, and Russia has no choice. Russia has allowed them to take a foothold and start and mine in Siberia. Now China is going to secure those and basically annex those, and if they do, then that is game over for Russia as an independent country, and Putin is finished, right? He's fighting two dragons, one being the awful mentality of the Russian people, in that we're strong, we're powerful, nobody will invade us, we got nukes. And the secondary one, the people within who are willing to do anything to get ahead and would betray Putin in a heartbeat. He has no illusions that there are those who would instantly switch and think that yes, we can finally bring back Soviet Union. So a lot of things are true, but not everything is true, because every leader is like a pin without like every leadership, right? Particularly those with large armies are a hand grenade. And when a leader first comes in, he pulls out the pin and runs around holding up the grenade, right? But eventually his hand's going to get tied. At some point he has to put in the pin, open the door, and put the grenade away and say, "Okay, I'll negotiate now. I've gotten my way. I've scared you all. I'm starting to think you're going to shoot me. I need to go to sleep." They get tired, they get worn out. Whatever it is, right? It's why a lot of leaders don't try to even stay in power for a long time. The challenges of leadership for Putin must be tremendous, given that how many rivals he has who are willing to literally stab him in the heart just to even be prime minister, or just to be a minister. If they can't get promoted, that's why has been through generals in the past, the worst of the worst, as also sometimes the best of the best in war. So there's always that juggle. Now, Ukraine's strategy is failing, but the Russians are winning, and this is pissing off even the International Monetary Fund, because Russia's economy is supposed to be $700 billion in debt. They're slowly reducing that, and they made $763 billion last year, on top of the $2.3 trillion in revenue, for tax revenue. Yeah, how many countries make a profit? How many countries make a profit more that could put them in the American stock exchange? Do you imagine if Russia listed? That'd be the richest company in the world. And that's what Putin wants as his legacy. But so many people are in the way because they're jealous. And they're pro-Chinese. Keir Starmer, Granny Harmer, Albo, get on his knees easy. There's a lot of them out there. Okay, I'm sure an American can list them off for me in America. Sandami, but Liz Warren. But it is what it is. You have to deal with reality. You can't let politics, but in war, you can't let politics decide, right? Truman hated Eisenhower, but he goddamn respected him because he and Patton got the job done, where all his other political appointees were failing. They got overran in the Pacific. All of the political appointees lost, right? You had, I think, 16 generals or something, and you have over 31 battles that you won't publicise because you lost and lost bad. You lost men, you lost equipment. Your generals literally got captured. Most didn't survive. Now, of course, you pulled MacArthur out of the Philippines, but his adjutant was captured and subsequently humiliated. But he was redeemed by MacArthur because MacArthur said it was between one of us who has to stand and and allow the other to escape. It was there was no resupply. It was not the general's fault. When you get no resupply, he did his best to buy time for the best to be withdrawn and the others, knowing they were going to be captured by the Japanese within a few hours. They knew it, right? But Truman and Roosevelt being cowards, right, always playing politics. And this is why we cannot have nice things. Weak men make hard times. Well, hard times, right, is when hard men thrive. So become a hard man or be weak and get sent to war, because you do not want to be sent to a grinding battlefield to destroy Russia just so that old grannies in Europe can have their free health care and to leave us behind trillions in debt. Okay? We've stolen too much we've stolen too much. Current generations should be standing up to the boomers and saying, "No, you no more freebies. You didn't save. You didn't. No more luxuries, right? All these boomers going out and protesting all the time. Cut them off. Make their families carry the bill. Nobody should be paying these boomers anything. They're not the greatest generation. They didn't fight World War II. They're just a bunch of old, miserable bastards who didn't save any money and in their lifetime started war after war. Now, you can't blame them from Korea. You can blame them from Vietnam. Blame the boomers for all the wars since and all the spending since on healthcare and luxury infrastructure spending. All billions, on foreign aid and still, nothing has been achieved on a grand scale, right? We've had space programs cut to pay for housing. We've had many scientific projects shut down by various presidents and sold off to other countries. Not just in America, many countries around the world because of boomers' greed. And this should be the last war of boomers' greed. This should be the point where we take a stand and say no more. No more to the Rothschilds, no more to the Habsburgs or whatever they call themselves now. No more to the George Soros and his ambitions. Cut them all off. Start saying, right, you're tax exempt, right? All your tax exempts, all these big hedge funds. Nope. We're taking those now. Done. We're RICOing you. That's it. Done. Over. The debt, all the boomers, all their assets, bang, we're selling them to pay the debt, All this bullshit, right? All these years of these tax havens and special tax incentives and all these tax subsidies. And the burden, right, has always been shifted for the government borrowing, right, this to you. So, okay, I rambled on, but I hope I've really impressed. I mean, I know most people aren't going to watch this far, right? Because most people don't care anymore. But thank you to those who do. Please like, share, and subscribe. Please support the channel and support me on Ko-Fi, Patreon, buy my books, buy my merch. Appreciate each and every one of you. See you in the next video, and bye for now.